Alright, welcome back to 17.1, Angles of Rotation and Radian Measure. So we're going to start with the Explore activity, just to kind of get acquainted with some vocabulary. So it says drawing angles of rotation and finding the coterminal angles. So let's say I wanted to draw an angle of rotation of 310. So just so you know, we usually start at the 0 degree from geometry. This is 90 degrees, 180, and 270. Okay. So without actually measuring, I'm going to just kind of sketch a graph. I think this is also, by the way, if I go all the way around, that would be 360. So not only is it my starting point, this axis right here, at 0, but if I go all the way around, I'll come back to 360. Since this is about 310, I'm guessing my angle will go all the way around. It's not a perfect circle, don't judge me. And it'll probably be somewhere about there's 310. Sorry about that. 310. So that's for part A. That's all they wanted us to do. Now, the reason I kind of drew on this one, because a lot of students are like, well, what does it mean by quadrant? In what quadrant is the terminal side? So if you think of this, this is my initial side. This is my starting point. This is where I start. And then I have my terminal side, which is where I end. Okay? Basic concepts of starting and ending, but they kind of give it fancy terms, initial versus terminal. And you'll notice my terminal side ends up being in quadrant. I know you're like, what is that? It's a Roman numeral, guys, and it means it's the 4th quadrant. The other ones are self-explanatory, 1st quadrant, 2nd, and 3rd. Alright, for part B of this Explore activity, it says on the same graph from the previous step, draw a positive coterminal. And you're like, what does that mean? You taught us initial and terminal, and I understood that, but what's coterminal? So it could mean, I'm just going to draw my sketch one more time. Again, it may not be perfect, but it's there. So a coterminal, here's your hint. You may want to make one more loop around the origin. So instead of stopping here, we're going to go one more loop. Oh, sorry about that. One more loop around the origin. And we end right back in that spot. Now because we went one more loop, we went an additional 360 degrees. Alright, so if I wanted to figure out like the actual value, not only, yes, I did draw that out, but I could also add 360, that's one more loop, to 310, and figure that out, and I think that would be 670 degrees. So that could be our coterminal angle. So just by adding 360 to our original angle, we could figure out a coterminal angle. Keep that in mind for when we do the homework, because they are going to ask us to do a couple of those, okay? And let's go on to part C. Alright, last but not least, on the same graph from the previous 2 steps, draw a negative coterminal angle. Okay, so again, I'm going to draw from our last step. That was about 310. And notice here how we started on our x-axis and we moved to the left. Okay, why is this important? So the word coterminal actually means, yes, it's going to be kind of ending in the same place, which we kind of found out that it did. The only difference though is because this is a negative, we're going to go in the opposite direction. So what's the opposite direction of going to the left? We're going to instead move to the right. So starting in the same place, we're going to move to the right. And you're probably wondering, well, that's all well and good, but what value would that be? Okay, so notice on the last one, well, I guess maybe remembering from the last one, we did add 360 to that value. So on the last positive coterminal angle that we got. We took our 310, which was our original angle, and we added 360, right? And we got about 670. Now, because they want a negative coterminal angle, we're going to do something a little different. We're actually going to, and I'm going to change that highlighted color to a little bit darker. We're going to take our 310 and we're going to subtract from 360. All right, so what would that be? Negative 50 degrees. So that's a way we could find either our negative coterminal angle or our positive coterminal angle. Keep this in mind because they are going to have us do a couple homework problems on this, so I want you to keep this as a reference. Alright, moving on to the next Explore activity. So here we're just going to practice this a little bit more before we move on to the next Explore activity. Just going over, again, coterminal angles are, and this is also in your packet. I actually copied and pasted this, so this is as a reference. So you'll see here, this is my positive angle, 125, right? And then my negative angle of 235. That is a 5 and not a 6, I know. Bad copy, right? Alright, so here they say draw an angle with the given measure in standard position, and the first one is done for you. So here you see I drew out a negative 390. So all I did was I started at here, and then notice because it's negative, I moved to the right. So it went down and over. And since this is 360, I added 30 more degrees. So it ends right there. Okay. And here we could do the same thing. Now since this is positive, we'll move to the left. Since this is negative, we'll move to the right. Alright, so this one would be starting here, we'll move to the left. Sorry about that. Starting at 0, moving to the left, about 315, and this is an estimate, so I'm guessing it'll be somewhere about there. Okay, and then for number 3, I'm going to draw that in a different color. Let's do purple. So we're going to start at 0, and we're going to instead move to the right. So that'd be, think of it this way, 30, 60, 90, 120, and that would be negative 120. Alright, let's move on to some more where we're just not asked to do a picture, but we're actually asked to just find a positive and negative angle for each. And remember we talked about this, we can either add or subtract. So on each one of these, I'm going to change it to a different color. Let's do that. So if it's a positive coterminal angle, we'll add 360 to that angle. If it's a negative coterminal angle, we'll subtract 360. So go ahead and work out each one of these and try these out. Okay. Now notice how I'm not going to actually do the computations for you because you can do them on your own, but that's just a way you can figure out your a negative coterminal angle and a positive one as well. So I will just give you that hint of what to do to find your positive versus your negative coterminal angle. So go ahead and try that out right now. And we'll go on to the next Engage activity in the next video, which is coming up next. Alright, see you on the next video.